Hey, you guys, I'm Ashley.
And I'm Liz, and this is the Besties in the Books podcast. Welcome.
Welcome.
So, yeah, different noise for each time.
Yeah.
For the spoiler section
right.
and for the introduction. Yeah, just whatever rolls out. Like, whatever happens organically. So today we're going to be following up on our Books That Made Us High School edition. And we're going to take a deep dive-ish into The Great Gatsby.
Yay!
Yeah. We thoroughly enjoyed this read. Like, I can only speak for myself, but we talked about it just a little bit ahead of time. Like, I love this book. This is my third time reading it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like each time I read it, I just love it more and more.
Yeah.
So thoroughly enjoyed it. We want to let you know that we obviously are going to be talking about The Great Gatsby. If this is a book you haven't read before, if you haven't seen the movie, and you don't want spoilers, then the first 15 minutes-ish will be spoiler-free. And then after that, we'll give you a little bit of a warning, so that you can exit before we get into the nitty-gritty of the book.
Yeah, I'll be sure to make a sound to catch your attention.
Yeah.
So when you hear the chimes go like this,
then make sure that you head out. I didn't even look to see when this book was published. I should look.
I was just thinking that when you were talking too. So you look that up real quick, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, follow and subscribe. Just do it. You want to hear some more of our shenanigans. You can find us anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts at Besties in the Books podcast, and also on YouTube if you want to watch our hand movements and facial expressions and any kind of visual aids that we incorporate.
I have one. I have one fun visual aid for today too. So bonus.
Fantastic. It's just all Robert Redford. Spoiler.
It's just our shrine of Robert Redford. Just picture.
It's a corner that I haven't seen of your book room yet. You're like, oh, by the way, here you go. Unveiling under the curtain. Yeah, that's what's there. Okay.
Yeah.
To each their own. I'm happy for you. Okay. So you can also find us on Instagram and TikTok too at Besties in the Books podcast, where we will also share Liz's Robert Redford shrine there too.
I don't have one.
We're starting rumors over here, guys.
Maybe I should have one. I don't know.
Oh, do you listen to that Besties in the Book podcast? Oh yeah, the one where the girl has the shrine of Robert Redford? Yeah, I listen to them.
In his heyday, guys. In his heyday.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
Great. Yeah. When did his heyday end? Did it ever? I don't know.
I mean,
I haven't seen him recently. I don't know.
Well, he's getting up there.
I don't even know. That man, like, watching the original Great Gatsby, it's also set in the roaring 20s, but I'm just like, dude, how old do you think he is now? I don't know, because he's played so many movies.
Like that movie was filmed in the 20s.
I know. It's like, dude, well, it's the 20s now, which is really trippy.
Yeah.
It's the 2020s. Whoa.
That's crazy.
Like, let's not think too hard about that. We're going to start freaking out. But like, he was an actor for so long. He was in so many movies that obviously those movies feel very old now, even though I don't know what year that was actually filmed.
It was like 70. It was like the early 70s, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But
it definitely
that's
wasn't
50
the
years ago still, which is pretty crazy.
Totally.
And he's like in his 30s.
Yeah.
So, all right. What year was this book published?
Okay,
so
I have to say,
and I'll look up how old Robert Redford is.
Yeah. Do that while I'm doing that. So this is my copy that I bought in college. So it's getting kind of a little old and crusty. That's okay. So I do want to say that I had a total like blonde moment. And I am naturally blonde. I have red hair right now, so no shade to the fellow blondes who are listening. I opened this, and there's some type of like, I don't know, address of like the publisher, I think is what it is, but it says 1230 Avenue of the Americas, and I was like, this was published in 1230.
That's so long ago.
And I was like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so anyways, now that
it was actually a futuristic dystopian novel of the time.
Robert Redford from the future past. Okay.
Yeah, New York wasn't even invented, or not invented yet, but like whatever.
Like made yet, yeah.
Founded. There we go.
Landed by the aliens.
Listen.
Where's this going? 1925.
Oh, so like in the thick of it.
Yeah. I mean, it was meant to be like a critique of its time, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Robert Redford, because I know these are all the questions you guys are having. Because listen, the book's been out for a while now, almost 100 years, you know? So we have stuff.
Crazy.
That's crazy.
Dude.
That's great. You said 1925? Yeah. It's going to have its year anniversary next year.
We'll have a party.
That's cool and also really trippy. Yeah, we'll have a party. Okay. Robert Redford is 87. And you know what? I feel like he's an elderly gentleman. He looks great.
Good. That's great. Good for him.
You know? I think that you could tell that he was a looker in his days. You know what I mean? So I'll pop up a picture for you guys, but in case you can see that.
Yeah.
This is great. It's good looking grandpa.
I feel like between The Great Gatsby and The Way We Were, which I don't know if there's any of The Way We Were fans out there, but I feel like his character in both of those movies is just like, it's my favorite. It's my favorite. Yeah. If anyone's confused by this because you haven't seen the old movie, like, why are they talking about Robert Redford so much?
When it's Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, he obviously plays Gatsby in the original movie that was made. There's been a lot of spin-offs too. I Googled it and there was like some Great Gatsby with like Paul Rudd in it. Did you know that?
I didn't watch it.
I haven't seen it.
But I was like, what? I didn't have time because I was watching 2 Great Gatsbys in one day. Gotta find out if it's a spoof or if it's like
I don't
for real.
think it's a spoof. I think it's probably like a made-for-TV version or something. But anyway, so that's why we're talking about Robert Redford, because he played Gatsby in the original. And what was it? Did you find it? 1970?
It was 74. Yeah, 74. So you're right on the money with that one.
Yeah.
In the 70s.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so let's just kick this off with our with our fave and fail. Okay, so we got this great idea that we were going to, since this is a throwback, since this is something that, we enjoyed when we were in high school, and then it kind of grew from there, we decided we'd do a nostalgia fave and fail themed edition for today.
Yeah.
And so this was all born from yesterday. Okay, this is how it started. So yesterday, my husband, I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but he's training for a 50K, so he's running a lot.
Oh, man.
Okay, so I'm sitting there, eating and hanging out, working on some, I don't know, podcast, Instagram stuff, whatever. And he's like packing up little, like, he calls them running snacks. And so he's packing like dried fruit and jerky. And I was like, hey.
So dried meats. Yeah.
Dried meats and dried fruits. And I was like, hey, why are you like packing like you're going on the Oregon Trail? And he was like, what is your obsession with the Oregon Trail? And I was like, okay, he's only 5 years older than me. And for some reason, it's like he doesn't have the same obsession or like affinity for bringing up the Oregon Trail in everyday conversation like Ashley and I do. And a lot of you guys do, I'm sure.
Yeah. A lot of millennials, a lot of Gen Zers. I don't know all the X's and Z's and Y's, but a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of
generation. It affects and it sticks with all the generations, I thought.
Yeah. This obsession with the Oregon Trail. And we'll get into this some more, but this sparked to this idea where, I immediately texted Ashley. I was like, I know that the people who listen to our podcast are totally going to love this. We have to bring up the Oregon Trail. We have to talk about it. So that's how this idea was born. So basically, we're going to be talking about our faves and fails, like millennial... What's the word I'm looking for? That's blanking out.
Dang it, you forgot. You said you didn't want to write it down.
But why am I blanking out on what it's called?
Because it's a lot of pressure.
No, seriously, what is it?
I know, me too. Millennial Roman Empire.
Roman Empire. Yeah, duh. Okay. So, so Millennial Roman Empire, faves and fails, something that, when we were growing up, we were absolutely obsessed with. Lots of times these things didn't make a whole lot of sense. When I was thinking about them, I was like, that is so weird that I was so obsessed with that, but okay. And then, like, something that, like, we just never really got into, but, like, everyone at school seemed to be, like, super obsessed with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So why don't we start off with those, and then at the end we can kind of get a little bit into the Oregon Trail.
Okay.
How's that?
Sounds good.
All right, so I'll go ahead and start with my fail, and then go into my fave. Okay. Because, end on a high note. Yeah. So my fail of like a Millennial Roman Empire level obsession was Pokemon and Pokemon cards.
That's what I was gonna say.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So both of us
goodness.
didn't get it. Okay, so you were gonna say that Pokemon was like your fail too, right?
Yeah.
Not your fave. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
I still to this day, like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe because I'm like not a huge game person.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, the whole thing, I just didn't really quite understand. And everyone, I mean, this was like the original, because it kind of like made a comeback, obviously.
Yeah, with these newer generations, for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, it was like everyone at school was collecting these cards. Everyone was playing the game at recess all the time. Like, I'm sure teachers were having to like, crack down on people like basically or kids doing that like 24/7, like trading them. It was a whole thing. And I never once like played it, bought a card, got into it, any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll say my fail right now would be the same one. That's the one I was in my mind. Yeah. And because it was magic adjacent, it was something that was forbidden in my household anyway. So I don't know if that just made me not ever get into it. Because I remember like my friend playing the cards and thinking like the little characters were cute. I didn't understand, and I didn't care about the trading or the collecting. And we probably didn't have enough money anyways to like get to that level. Yeah. Because it's like an expensive hobby. Totally. But the characters were cute, but I was never like, I still to this day don't understand what you do, how you collect them, what you do, how you do it. Yeah. My husband got me the Lorcana cards because they're so cute. The like Disney version that recently came out. But again, I'm just like, oh, they're cute. And then I put them in my closet, like, and I got you those Lord of the Ring ones, but they're like cool to look at because they're like, those ones are like a spin on the characters that we love. But actually playing the games, I don't know. No, when I got you that, you're like, okay, I'll figure out how to play it. I'm like, no. We're not going to sit and play it. They're just cool to look at. Yeah, it's like Gandalf, like, but a different art style,
Well, it's like, and I even asked, so, our friend Racinda is like, she's a gamer. She's into gaming, all the things, like the board games, Magic, I don't even know, like so many games. And I asked her, I was like, is this something that, like, I should try to pursue? Like, what do you... And she was like, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. You'll hate it. Don't do it. I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Just look
because
at them
you really don't like games.
No,
right?
I
like
don't.
board games and stuff. Like, you'll do it, but you don't want to. And I'm not somebody that... I don't want to commit to something, like, long term when it comes to games, and like I'll do a Uno because that's fast. There's this one that I play with my daughter, Taco Gat. You played it too.
Yeah, that was actually pretty fun.
Taco Cat Goat Cheese. Like, I'll play like funny ones, but like strategy, no, I really don't want to do it. Like, I'll never want to do Monopoly because it's like, well, I don't want to be here for 14 hours.
Gross. I'm for anyone who's been listening, like, my attention span.
Monopoly, gross.
It's like my attention span for games is the same as my attention span for crafting. It's the same.
No, yeah.
2 to 5 minutes, and I'm like, dunzo. Like,
and I want it for fun. Like, I don't want it for like, I don't need to work my brain. I save up my attention span for like long books.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. Well, and it's like, I just if I have that free time, I want to read. And I'm not competitive. Yeah. That's the other problem. Yeah. I do not have a competitive bone in my body. Like, with myself, I do. Like, I want to, whatever. Like, if I'm lifting, I want a PR. Like, that's just a thing that I have with myself. But as far as competitiveness in sports or amongst other people, like, it's just not there.
Yeah.
So it makes me, like, just very disinterested in games.
Yeah. And I'm only competitive to be funny. Like for the comedic value.
It seriously.
Because I like to get the other people riled up that are competitive, but as soon as I walk away from that ping pong table or whatever, like, I don't even remember who won. Like, I like to talk, what is it called?
Talk a big game? It's like, I feel like I'm on Wheel of Fortune right now. Because
I was going to say talk dirty, but that wasn't right.
Trash talk.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
I like to trash talk, but like, but in jest. Like, I like to just be fun like that, but I don't really care at the end of the day who wins. Like, and I'm not good enough at anything to actually care. And I'm not going to go around here acting like I am and throwing a hissy fit if I lose.
It's like, okay, great. Like, you're the best at, like, Uno. Good job. You know what I mean? Like, good job.
Great. Good for you. Put it on your resume. There you go. Have fun with that. All right. So see, and the reason why we're so shocked by this, because everybody knows like we're besties, we're best friends in real life for like a long time, but that didn't start until high school. So when we're talking like elementary, middle school, it's always a surprise to both of us too. So
this is
getting to know each other. So that was great. We have like a lot of things we were talking about, we're thinking of using, and that was the same fail. There you go.
I know.
So let's hear your fave.
Okay,
fave so of the times. Millennial Roman Empire.
So my fave, and I have a visual aid.
Great.
For anyone who can see it.
That looks recently made.
It is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
that's a little bit crafty.
Yeah, I guess a little bit. Okay, so
crafting adjacent.
For anyone who is listening, I have one of those, like, you know those lanyards that we used to braid made out of plastic?
Yeah.
I don't even know what the technical name for these is. I don't even know.
It's some form of like a friendship bracelet or keychain or what have you.
You can make them into all different
lattice
shapes.
Thing, a lattice system.
And you have all these different, like colors that you can weave together, and you can do like the basic square one, or you could do like the twisty one, or like a combo. So the way I was obsessed with these, like, I don't even know, like, where do you even buy the stuff to make these? Like, does Michaels have this? I don't even know.
I don't know.
But
it's a lost art.
I know. I had like a whole box, like a, like a plastic organizer box with all of my different colors of, it's not even string. It's like plastic string. Like, I don't know what to call it. And I would just weave these all the time. And I was obsessed. And you'd make keychains for everybody. Yep. And like, it was just a whole thing. And this one that I have for my visual aid, I keep it in my car. So this is actually one that we made at my bachelorette party.
Oh, yeah. We went to Camp No Counselors, an adult summer camp, and we made friendship lanyards. It was so cute.
Yeah.
And I kept getting frustrated with it.
I remembered. I came right back. I was like, oh, that's right. This is how you do this weird
you and
thing.
I think Tara had to start us all off because we didn't know how to, like, we were so frustrated. Me, Lucinda, and who else was it? We were so frustrated.
Christina, Tony.
Yeah. But some people went off and like did other things. There was like a half of us were doing the lanyards. But anyways, anybody who were there, that was fun. Good stuff.
So were you obsessed with making those weird plastic lanyards? Do you have any still? I feel like I want to. You're right. It's kind of craft adjacent, but at the same time, I feel like it's very like non-committal because it's only one thing. It's like, I'm not painting anything. I'm not really required to be creative. I can't really mess it up, really.
It's therapeutic, and you're not trying to make it to look like something.
No, it's like literally just a thing. It just is what it is. You can't really make it that fancy. There's probably some people out there that are like, hold my beer, I can make it fancy, right? You probably make these crazy ones that I'm kind of wondering now. I'm like, I kind of feel like I need to go to Michael's and like see if I could find some, and like, because I feel like for me it's like if I could like read with my eyes, so if I could like set up my Kindle, so that I can read it with my eyes and then have that going with my hands, like that's like ultimate relaxation mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a good idea. Mm-hmm. It's a good idea. Since we were talking about games, I might as well just throw this one out there. Because I had a short-term obsession with it, which most of them are. Okay. It was one of those things that took the people really quick and then disappeared and nobody ever talked about them again.
Took the people really quick. Okay.
I'm very eloquent with my words.
Yeah.
Okay. POGS. Did you ever play POGS? Oh my God.
I was obsessed with POGS.
Yeah. See?
Dude.
See?
Yeah.
So
I don't even know like how you play POGs. I think for me it was more so like I like to collect them because they were cool and pretty. And I had this one that was like a thicker one, and it was like iridescent, and it had like, I can't remember what kind of animal it was.
There was this bunny that was like super collectible. Was it the bunny?
It wasn't a bunny. I know that for sure.
But it's like his face. It's like a comedic bunny. Those are the ones I loved.
Yeah, no, it was like clear but iridescent, so that when you turned it, you could see the animal like show up and then go away. And I want to say it was like a lion or like a wolf or like kind of like it was like supposed to be kind of like a tough looking animal. Like not cute. You know what I mean? Like not a cutesy animal.
Yeah.
And cool. I loved that. It's like very satisfying to like stack them all up and put them in their little case.
Oh, that little like container that was almost like a film container.
Yeah.
Them out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
I know.
It was great. See, and the thing that I had a problem with POGS and any kind of trading cards, I am not a trader. Like,
You're like, it's mine.
It's mine. Like, I have a really hard time, like, trading things because it's like, well, you know, unless I got something I really didn't want, but pretty much everything I got, I'd be like, no, I want it. Like, I'm not going to play POGs to trade. We're just going to play POGs for fun. And we'd be on the bus doing them because I had like a 45-minute bus ride. They were so good. So I remember how to play the game. You'd get the cardboard ones that were the POGs. And then you had the slammers. Those were the thick bad boys. And you would slam your slammer, and there was all kinds of different thicknesses, and you pretty much won if you had the silver ones, because I had some that my aunt gave me from Universal Studios.
Oh,
and one with E.T. on it. If I could find them, we will put them in an Instagram post or something.
I definitely don't have
because I have them. I have seen them at one point, but I just don't know if they're at my house. So yeah, they're great. They're great. Yeah, and I loved them. But then whatever ones you flipped over, you got, unless you like had a friend that was cool. You had to know who to trust if you didn't want to trade, because some people would be like, no, this is how you play it. I'm taking it. You don't play with those people.
The worst.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, POGS is great. Hey, do you remember family billiards? Have I asked you this? Because everybody that we grew up with in that town, nobody remembers that store. It was only there during the POG boom. And it was like an arcade.
I thought, okay, hold on. I thought you were talking about a game called Family Billiards.
No, it was a store. It was like a store, I guess. I mean, it wasn't a store, but
it was.
It was like an arcade.
Was it in Wofford Heights?
No.
Where was it?
It was next to Pizza Factory.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where Rainbow Donuts is. Or was. I don't think it's there anymore.
I think it is there, because someone told me recently that they still have good donuts.
Oh.
I don't know why I know that.
Yeah, well, I thought they... Maybe not. Anyways, this is different lore from our hometown. This is what the people signed up for. We'll call it, okay? We'll call it.
Yeah.
So that is our faves and fails, but...
Yeah. Okay, but here's the thing. So we need to have a moment for the Oregon Trail, because we need to talk to you guys about this. Okay, so... I think, I was telling my husband about it. I was like, there was a whole section of the curriculum that was like very, very Oregon Trail-y. I mean, it was like, you guys remember the game on the computer, right? The old
because we were like the first generations to get the computer labs.
Yeah, exactly.
We had to go to ours was in the library, and you had to go, and you had your time frame, and we'd learn typing, and then we'd have the Oregon Trail.
Trail. That's what I'm saying. It's like literally they were saying like the Oregon Trail is as integral to your education as typing. Like that's just the bottom line. And so I mean, I remember it must have been in like maybe the 4th or 5th grade. We were separated into groups, and like one of our assignments for like a big chunk of the year was to see who could stay alive the longest on the Oregon Trail game. Like that was, which is kind of a little bit like dark now that I think about it now. But I mean, it was so fun, and we had to build like this whole like diorama thing. I remember where we had to build like out of real materials, like our own miniature covered wagon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and like present it to the class, and we had to learn like square dancing. Like it was like a whole thing.
Yeah, it was like and that was like still, I think it rolled into like the gold rush and all of that.
Yeah,
so it's like, maybe because we're in California, but your husband is too. So I don't know. We can't figure out why he wasn't into it.
Yeah,
why
like everyone we've met pretty much like around our age, and even not, like has been like, oh, the Oregon Trail.
No, and I asked my husband, I told him that whole conversation. He's like, I love the Oregon Trail. We have a game for the Oregon Trail. So my husband is 10 years older. So we don't know how Canaan's in between all of us, and didn't, that year they're like, nah, let's try not doing it. But like my husband's is obsessed. We have like a board game Oregon Trail that we bought like 10 years ago that we still haven't opened because we're really bad at doing games too. But like it's like you guys have seen it. It's at Walmart and Target still, but it's like the game that would be on the computer, but as a board game.
Oh,
so
okay.
We got to do it one of these days.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
It's great.
Yeah, no, great. I mean, it was like we had, I feel like a whole festival where like you were supposed to like dress up and like we didn't have like activities. Yeah,
unless I blacked it out. But
I mean. Yeah, it was like a big deal.
It was a big part. It was a big part. It felt like one of those, like what they say, like I thought quicksand would be a lot bigger deal, as an adult because it came up so much. Like Oregon Trail, you just thought it would come up a lot more. I mean, it seems like it does, but
it comes up all the time. But then when you think about it, it's like, when was the last time you watched a great movie about the Oregon Trail?
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, this is like an area of missed opportunity. Like, I want to, like, not Hollywood. Like a Western, like, not like a Western. Like, no, that's not what I mean.
Like the plight of the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Petition
Hollywood.
to make this movie.
Dear Hollywood.
Dear Leonardo DiCaprio. Please.
Yeah.
Please start. Yeah, I know.
We did most of your casting for you already.
Yeah. So good. And there was a Dear America book that I remember reading about the Oregon Trail.
Yes, that was another one because it rolled into that. So, yeah.
So anyways, let us know. I'm sure we'll ask you guys a bunch too, but like, we need to know. Share your Oregon Trail experiences with us, please. And POGS and those weird plastic lanyards and Pokemon, etc.
And Pokemons and all that. Yeah. For sure. It's great.
So, okay. We should probably at some point start talking about the Great Gatsby.
Yeah. I think now's a good time.
That's why we're here.
Feels good.
Okay, just get into this is still spoiler free, just our basic star reviews real quick, and then we'll get into the spoiler portion.
Sounds good.
So,
all right.
I give it 5 stars. Easily.
Gladly.
Yeah.
Willingly.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, like I said, so I read it once in high school, I read it once in college, and then this is my first time reading it since college. And I just, it did not disappoint. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to get into it because it's just such a different writing style than like everything that we've been reading lately.
Yeah.
And it took like, I don't know, maybe half a chapter before I was fully like back into it and like immersed.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was not hard to get into it at all. I honestly would recommend anybody who enjoys reading, read this book. Like, read it as an adult. If you haven't read it since high school, you'll probably get so much. I mean, you will get so much more out of it. So much more. The stuff I feel like...
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about that. We'll talk about like our takes reading it in high school versus now because it's very different.
Very different.
Took away a lot of different things. It's crazy.
And, just because I feel like this is something we need to cover. This is a 0 spice, guys, okay? Zero spice, 5-star. And it sounds like it was a 5-star for you as well.
Yeah, 5 stars then, 5 stars now. This is my 3rd time reading it as well.
Cool.
We practically have buddy read it each time because we were in the same English class that we had to read it, and we loved it then. Mm-hmm. And I reread it around the same time as you. And then we didn't talk about it, and then obviously now we did. And 5 stars still. Yep. It was jarring to get into that writing style again because I used to read a lot of that kind of more poetic almost type of style writing. Mm-hmm. But now I'm in the fantasy world and it's very different. Yeah. So but like half a chapter and then I'm like, okay, I'm back in it. I'm back in it. It's almost like a palate cleanser, if you're looking for a book like that, because it's a very different style writing, narrative, story, everything. Yeah. So, same recommendations. Yeah. Just read it. Just read it. You should. Yeah. It's only 150 pages too.
Yeah, it's quick.
Which is crazy that it was that short. I did not realize.
That's what I thought was really interesting because at the end we'll talk a little bit about the movies too, but I thought it was so interesting that they turned this teensy little book into because I think both movies are, 2.5 hours-ish long. Yeah. 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 But I think it's just because I think that's one of the reasons why it's such a classic and so renowned is because it's so full of like so many important themes, even though it is so short. Yeah. And not very many, like if you're looking at like actually breaking down, like action or like plot points, not a whole lot, quote unquote, happens, but a lot happens. Yeah. So.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
For sure.
So I would say now is probably a good time to warn you to exit if you don't want...
I try to do a Gatsby song.
There you go. Okay. Kind of sounded a little bit like Mario Kart, but also Gatsby.
I'll work on it.
But yeah, so this would be your cue to exit. We will be getting into spoilers. There we go.
Okay. Okay. Get out of here. Go on, get. If you don't want spoilers, we're going to spoil everything.
Yeah. We're going to spoil everything now from this book that was written 100 years ago.
100 years. So what, 600 years ago? What's that? 1270.
Also, the movie, I couldn't even believe it. The quote unquote new movie came out, in what, 2013? I think it was already.
Wow.
That's like a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we go. Here we go. Buckle up.
Let's do it.
All right. First of all, I will say, I told Ashley, I was like, when I'm writing the episode outline, I'm just going to keep it cash. I think that we could just talk about it. It's fine. And then as I'm typing it out, I'm like, okay, so I do all the plot points, all the themes, all the character.
It's like 3 pages.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm sorry. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It overtook me and I had to include everything.
Yeah.
Just because it's so good. I feel like it's one of those books where it's I don't want to skip over something because I feel like everything's so intentional that it's I wouldn't be doing it justice if we forgot something major, and every little thing seems major.
Well, and it's such a short book that there's not really filler.
Yeah,
no. It's like you said, it's intentional.
Yeah.
It almost reads like a journal, right? Because he's narrating it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, and he's writing
What
it.
is that? Is that he's writing it, and it's first person, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, he's writing it as his story. So the way that I kind of interpreted that, and I was kind of wondering, I wanted to know your take on this. I was kind of interpreting that he's writing it as his future book, obviously, but then also almost recounting his collection, his recollection to the police or whoever is wanting to know all the details about what went down.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. At the beginning, it felt like you're in it, right then and there when it's happening. But then obviously towards the end, it feels like he's talking about it more of in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. So we're introduced to Nick, who is the main character. We know that he went to Yale. He's from Minnesota. He moves to West Egg, Long Island. So we're kind of introduced to these two opposing sections of Long Island. So we've got West Egg, which is essentially all the people who have quote unquote the new money. So however they came into that, whether it be through, they like to emphasize bootlegging, because of the fact that, we were going through prohibition, or, whatever. And then you have the people who live on the other side, like Daisy and Tom, once we're introduced to them, who are, what would be considered quote unquote old money. So people who come from, long lines of generational wealth, essentially.
Yeah.
And so Nick kind of gets this deal on this tiny little, cute little cottage or whatever, that's smushed between all these big, gigantic mansions.
Yeah.
Because he's basically trying to get into the stocks business, right? That's what he's doing. But so this kind of a little bit was confusing to me. Maybe you can clear this up. So it doesn't really seem like he comes from money, but at the same time it does.
Yeah, because he's kind of money adjacent. So that's why he's still in, since he is Daisy's cousin.
Right.
So he grew up around money, but maybe it's more of his parents are no, you have to go earn it still. So maybe they're or maybe the mom didn't marry money or something. So, he doesn't have that trickle down like all of them have, but he's still in the fold enough.
Yeah.
Where they're kind of rooting him on. You can do it on your own still.
Yeah. Because, he went to Yale. I'm that can't be... cheap, right?
Yeah, but maybe for his parents, they're which, I appreciate, go earn it yourself and figure it out. Or maybe his parents didn't feel the same way of the West Egg, East Egg, they're not as hoity-toity, they're a little more laid back. Yeah. We don't really find out about his direct family.
Right, exactly.
So
it's he's there to be the observer, which I think is really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
He plays a part in the story, but obviously it's he's there to kind of, literally just recount these bizarre actions of these super rich people, basically.
He's not enmeshed with anybody enough that it actually is high stakes for him.
Right, correct.
But he knows them enough to be around to witness all this stuff. So it's a nice, refreshing take.
Yeah. And I think he's able to look at their actions critically too, because if he was, I think that's the point of his character, is that if he was so mixed up in everything that they were into, whether it's new money or old money, whatever, he would be blind to the same things that they are.
Yeah. And if he's on the other end of the people that he witnesses too, you just are continuing rumors and judgmental. Like, he's that perfect in between.
Yeah. Where he's able to be critical. And he even says that in the beginning too, where he talks about how, you know, his parents raised him to be open-minded, to not,
that's right.
You know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. You know, he visits Daisy and Tom, so we get to meet them. So yeah, there's this big dramatic scene, you know, where he walks in and it's just like this, you know, all the curtains are billowing around Daisy and, you know, Jordan's there as well. And you're introduced to her character too. And it's just, you know, I thought that scene was really, really important because you see kind of almost like this whimsical nature that Daisy almost wishes that she could be. But then immediately Tom closes all the windows and doors and kind of like smushes that back down is how it felt. You know what I mean? Like kind of tampers that back down. And that's kind of how you're introduced to like them and their lifestyle.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was curious to talk to you about this part. What do you think was the point of Jordan's character?
I don't know, like, to keep him around a little bit more, because they are trying to have a relationship throughout the book. It's not really talked about much in the movie or shown in the movie, but in the book, but also as like a means to, like, you know, Gatsby has lunch with her first to try to figure out how, you know, and almost as like another bystander to that kind of witnesses the stuff along with them, but she's more in the trenches with them, you know, enmeshed with them, where she's not as critical of stuff.
Yeah. See,
but otherwise, it was a little bit weird.
I struggled with her character because, like, this time, you know, watching it and reading it, I was kind of trying to figure out, like, what her purpose really is. And, like, the best thing I could come up with was that she kind of represents, like, the freedom that, like, Daisy doesn't have. And I feel like, because she is very entrenched.
Well, and she encourages her to see Gatsby.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, you know, they're upset about Tom, obviously. Like, well, he's doing what he wants. She should do what she wants.
Yeah.
So almost kind of, just as like a sidekick best friend who's just around for the ride, but also not a good enough friend to, like, actually,
like, help her get out of a
because
situation.
they're the old money. They're also stupid. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
You know?
No, totally.
So, and, like, drunk and on narcotics half the time.
Yeah. Seriously.
So that's another problem.
So, because, at this point, you know, when he goes over there, we find out that, you know, Tom's got a mistress. That's what we know.
Yeah.
And we kind of get this sense, you know, this is where, you know, Daisy tells Nick about, you know, that famous quote. What is it? It's like a girl. What is it? I'm like blanking out on it. I don't want to, like, mess it up.
Oh, is it about her daughter?
Yeah.
So she became
a silly
disenchanted,
little fool.
essentially. Yeah, she wants her daughter to be a silly little fool so she doesn't notice all this stuff that's going on.
Yeah, like, that's the best thing a girl can be in this world, is a silly little fool. That's what it is. And so you get this idea that it's like Daisy really, really wants to... She's smart. Like, she seems like she's not, but she's smart.
I think she just, you know, drinks and stuff to cover up her emotions and what she's feeling.
I think that she understands that, like, also for women at that time, you really had a lot of limitations.
Yeah.
And so in a lot of ways, she recognizes that she's kind of trapped. And I'll talk about that a little. I want us to talk about that a little bit more in the end, because I feel like it becomes really obvious once she starts kind of, you know, rekindling her love with Gatsby. Yeah. How clear that becomes to her. And why she doesn't just choose to leave Tom for Gatsby. Yeah,
because this is in the 20s, where, like, she has the most freedom of any woman at the time because of her money and who she's married to, but she's still very trapped. Like,
right, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and so that's why I think, like, Jordan, you know, she's kind of, like, seemed like the outlier to me. Like, she wasn't, you know, locking herself down with marriage.
But she didn't have family. She had... or her family weren't around or anything. Because that was a big, you know, obviously thing that happened on her wedding day, Daisy's wedding day, where she was going to not marry Tom and make her own decisions. But her family forced her to keep
do it.
him.
Yeah, because she got
But Jordan was also a part of that.
Yeah.
Which was pretty messed up.
Yeah, so because she gets that
she also
letter
knows
from Gatsby.
Like, you're not going to have any money. You're going to be on the streets, you know, if you marry for love.
Yeah. So, let's see. So what happens? So then we have the next big thing that happens where Tom and Nick go to the city. And he kind of, like, he kind of like drags him along, which I thought was like a little odd, but I'm like, okay, whatever. It's like he almost wanted him to like validate his behavior, I think.
That and like, it's the good old boys kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly
like,
right.
you're going to basically, he's making sure you're going to keep this secret for me too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you're cool. Like you're in,
Yeah.
Ugh, it was so icky.
Yeah. So they all go, to the city where you meet Myrtle. You meet her husband, George. They have this party. It gets all crazy. They're all drinking too much. And then basically Tom ends up breaking Myrtle's nose.
Yeah.
Which kind of shows you that he's not, just cheating on his wife. He's also kind of a bad guy. I think that was...
he's abusive.
He's abusive. Yeah. So I think that was important to be put in there because otherwise, like... we might have maybe not known that Tom is as bad as he is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it kind of, like, sealed the deal, I feel.
Yeah, because I was trying to figure that out now on the third, on the third movie I was watching, so the book, the two movies, is that I couldn't figure out if he was abusive towards her or not, like, physically. I think, obviously, emotionally.
Towards Daisy?
Yeah, towards Daisy. I don't think we see that because he's obviously keeping a front too.
Yeah. I didn't get the sense that he was abusing Daisy physically. Yeah. But then at the same time, Gatsby does mention later on, like, I'm going to wait outside of her house.
That's true.
To make sure that he doesn't harm her. So I don't know if that's based.
So maybe she could have disclosed something
that we don't know. Yeah. Because, I mean, really, honestly, like, if he's going to hit his... one girlfriend, he's probably hitting his wife too. Like that's just the way it is. But we don't know. That's not like a for sure thing. So then kind of the next scene is where Nick gets invited. So he actually gets an invitation. He gets invited to one of Gatsby's parties. We still haven't met Gatsby at this point. We don't really know anything about him. All we hear is all the rumors people are saying, just kind of speculation, that he, like, because no one really knows anything about his past.
Yeah.
He's basically just, like, mysterious. But then he stops and asks someone if he knows where to find him, and it actually ends up being Gatsby himself. So that's kind of how we're finally introduced to the main character.
Yeah.
You get that iconic Leonardo DiCaprio with his martini glass.
Yes.
Scene.
Classic.
A classic.
So good.
So then Nick goes to, so the next major thing is Nick goes to lunch with Gatsby where he meets Wolfsheim, who I just put here seems kind of shady. So at this point, I think Nick is trying to, like, decipher, like, is Gatsby shady? How did he get his money? Like, is he doing illegal stuff? Like, we don't really know. But he doesn't really seem to, like, confront him about that either.
Yeah. Well, and also I feel like Gatsby is obviously in a way kind of courting Nick because he finds out that he's Daisy's cousin.
100%.
So he kind of is showing off to him. That's what I mean by courting is like how you would when you're dating. Like, this is who I am. This is what it is. Don't you want to, instead of be with me, but like, wouldn't you recommend me?
Yeah.
Essentially vouch for my character. So although Wolfsheim is like such a weird guy to think that you're going to vouch for his character. He's like so creepy as the molar cufflinks and everything.
Yeah.
Tells him about he's essentially a gangster.
Yeah, totally.
Tells him how his friend got killed outside that same restaurant they're at, or whatever. And it's like, because like on the right here, he's telling him all this other stuff, but now it's kind of like, well, maybe not. Like, making me more suspicious of you. But I think he paid him to talk about him because when he leaves the table, he's like, yeah, isn't he a great guy?
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a good guy.
Haven't you heard of Oxford? Do you know where Oxford is? Yeah.
So
I feel like, Tom is also really taken by Gatsby. Like, and he says that often.
He has a little man crush as well.
Yeah, I think he says that when Gatsby looks at you, he really feels like he sees you and he sees your potential and hope for the future. And he just gets that very, like, what he perceives at the time as a very, like, optimistic outlook on life. But he doesn't yet realize that is all based on this complete, like, made-up dream in his mind that isn't real.
Yeah.
So I think that's what kind of comes across, too, is just this idea that, wow, I've never met anyone like him before.
Well, and anybody with money, that actually is, like, dang it, I just lost it in my head. But, like, I hate when you're like in the middle of something
And then
profound.
you forget,
And your
yeah.
head just stops. Just how you said he like sees you for who you are.
Like he's genuine, but has a lot of money.
Genuine. There we go.
Yeah.
Like somebody with a lot of money that's actually genuine in that world.
Yeah.
It's a refreshing, breath of fresh water. What the heck is wrong with my brain?
Yeah, we get it. Breath of fresh air.
Don't take a breath of fresh water.
Or do.
Don't do that.
But yeah, so, at that point, basically Gatsby gets all cryptic and he's like, well, have tea with Jordan and she'll tell you
Yeah.
about the stuff. And I'm like,
that was kind of dumb, but like, yeah, okay.
yeah, I was like, well, that's odd, but all right. So then she discloses this is how Daisy and Gatsby know each other from back, when he was in the war and they dated and then he got sent off and basically didn't want to come back to her until he could give her the life that he felt like she deserved. So in the meantime, she obviously meets and marries Tom. So, okay, so then you end up with a super awkward situation where basically Gatsby's like, hey, so can you invite Daisy to tea so we can talk? I haven't seen her in 5 years.
Yeah.
But I'll just casually come on by and like pretend like I was just there.
And it wasn't casual at all.
No, it was not. It was so weird.
Like a nice little mid-afternoon drop by would have made way more sense than that like whole situation that he ends up doing. Like just being there already, I think didn't make sense. But that's all right.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. So, and he even brings in, he redoes his whole outside of his house and his lawn and like brings all this food and all the flowers and everything over. And obviously Daisy is shocked when she sees him, but she ultimately is happy. She's happy that to just rekindle whatever.
Yeah, because she's heard his name, come up, and she does startle a couple times in the book when somebody mentions Gatsby, because she's like wondering if it's the same one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So they kind of start having this like kind of side affair at that point.
Yeah. And that's what, like, Jordan also facilitates that. And, like, well, dude, we all know, everybody knows that her husband's sleeping with another woman.
Yeah.
So why can't she have a little fun?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Or something for herself, Jordan says. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then at some point during this whole mix, Gatsby also, lets Nick in on his true past. Which I thought was kind of interesting, too. So he talks about, his whole, like, encounter with that guy, Dan Cody, off of the coast. Or I guess it's on one of the Great Lakes or whatever, where he basically, like, saves him and ends up traveling the world with a super rich guy who then dies but doesn't leave him any of his inheritance. So then he's penniless again and has to basically, like, start over in his venture to become, this great person.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, okay.
Which was crazy. I think that it's definitely portrayed in different ways on each format. But in the book, I thought it was interesting that it's very specifically he was saying, and who knows if it's true or not, but within the book, that there was, the guy was like, yeah, I'm going to leave you all the money. But then one of his ex-wives came back in the picture right when he was at death's door, and ended up taking all the money too. So he definitely felt like he had one pulled over on him. He was there for that guy. Nobody in his family was, and all that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I pulled this actually. I made a little note that this came off of Spark Notes because I was going through to kind of make sure that I wasn't missing anything. And I really, really thought this was an interesting note. So it's easy to see how a man who has gone to such great lengths to achieve wealth and luxury would find Daisy so alluring. For her, the aura of wealth and luxury comes effortlessly. She is able to take her position for granted, and she becomes, for Gatsby, the epitome of everything that he invented J. Gatsby to achieve. As is true throughout the book, Gatsby's power to make his dreams real is what makes him great. But in this chapter, it becomes clear that his most powerfully realized dream is his own identity, his sense of self. It is important to realize, in addition, that Gatsby's conception of Daisy in itself is a dream. He thinks of her as the sweet girl who loved him in Louisville, blinding himself to the reality that she would never desert her own class and background to be with him. So he's basically, this is the point where we're realizing, like, he's basically, it's an illusion. He's delusional.
He's a little delulu.
Yeah.
And by a little, I mean a lot.
Yeah, and it's sad. It's sad, I think.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, my husband and I were watching it, and I was like, what a tragedy. Like, I feel like the older I get, the more I see it as like it's a tragic romance story. That's really just what this is. That was just really sad to watch, like, how much he had built this person up in his mind, and then she's just not it. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even still, like, just refuses to see, like, what she really is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah. I mean,
like,
even to the 11th hour, he's saying, she'll call. You know, it's like she's literally packing up her stuff and getting on with her life. Like,
That's why I think it's such a good book to read at all different age levels, because I think, obviously, like, first loves, you know, or these, you know, high school sweethearts that you just build up so much in your mind, and then it's like, is that really the person that they are? And I mean, they're in loves in general, you know, and boyfriends and girlfriends and exes in general. I think people have a habit of portraying them as bigger and grander as what they really are, and forget that people are multidimensional
and just,
you know?
and just people at the end of the day.
And just people. And and just people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she really was nothing special, you know?
So I think she, you know, and we'll talk about this a little bit more because this is the part that I found really fascinating. But I think she was just the final, you know, she was the final piece that he needed to complete his own identity. And that is what is problematic about the whole situation.
Yeah, because you can't ever rely on other people to
complete
create your own identity. Complete you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. To find your own happiness. Find it own within yourself, man.
Yeah. There's our little, that's our little dose of inspirational podcast. That's as far as it goes. So take with it what you will. So at this point, Daisy and Gatsby are obviously having a full-blown affair. Gatsby wants Daisy to admit that she never loved Tom. So we have this, like, in my opinion,
which was so crazy.
Yeah, this was the best part of the book, in my opinion, because it was just so, like, the tension was written so well.
Yeah.
You have Tom, who's so arrogant that he's like, say whatever you want right to my face and I'll take, you know what I mean? Basically, like, I'll take it, like, say what you need to say. Gatsby's basically, like, speaking for Daisy. They're both speaking for Daisy, which I think is the main problem here.
Yes. I hated that. It was so, like, cringy.
Yeah, but it was obvious. It was like, it was in there intentionally to basically show that no matter what, at the end of the day, Daisy would either be, you know, a trophy for Tom or a trophy for Gatsby.
She's an object no matter what.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. It's crazy.
Because, you know, she's just getting all upset. She's getting flustered. She's telling Gatsby, I can't say that I never loved Tom because I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's almost like he just wanted her to say that because he felt like that would absolve that one wrong that she did.
Yeah.
Like, she did kind of, like, scorn him in a way because he wanted her to wait for, which is unrealistic, but, you know, in his mind, okay, well, you did that. So in order to erase that, you need to tell him you never loved him.
Well, yeah,
and
because
he had this obsession with that.
Because if you admit that you never loved him, it means that you only married him for his money, for his status, to basically tide you over until I came back.
Yeah.
But by admitting that she loved him, well, now it's real, and you're not the only man that she's ever loved, right?
Yeah.
So
and like he said, he felt married to her from the beginning, from the moment they met.
Mm-hmm. So it's like this perfect dream, this perfect person that he's created his entire life for. You know, it's like, what a reality shattering moment to, like, hear that, you know, that it's not real.
Yeah.
It's not real. She's just a person.
Yeah.
So that whole craziness happens. So then Tom's basically like, you guys can drive home together. See you later.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's so self-assured.
Yeah.
He's not even worried about it.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Okay, crazy. Yeah, go have fun with that. Whatever.
Because he knows at the end of the day, she's going to choose him.
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, she does have a kid with this guy, even though you don't even know it most of the time. You can easily skip that sentence here or there. They do already have a history as opposed to, like, essentially a summer fling with Gatsby. And people have been speculating about what Gatsby actually does. You know, is it all an illusion? Is somebody going to come through the gates and take away this dream? And then they're back on the street penniless still, you know, because you still don't really know what he does.
Exactly.
He's still a little mixed up in something sketchy. So, you know, as somebody who's lived a comfortable life like that and already has that built up, she has to decide, like, at the end of the day, is that really what I want? And he's they're all trying to force her decision for her.
Yeah.
So
I mean, she barely even talks during that scene. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, that's I think, you know, and I said something like this in our Fable chat too that I definitely wanted to bring up. It's this idea that Gatsby and Tom are more alike, I think, than they are different. And
yeah, interesting.
I think that is like Tom might be abusive and
Racist.
morally and racist.
Yeah,
Although
that
I
comes
will
up a lot.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely racist. I mean even for back then he's racist
Yeah.
because you could see them rolling their eyes at him.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you know.
Yeah, this guy.
Yeah, clearly he's a misogynist for sure.
Yeah.
You know, but then at the same time, you have to look at, okay, well, Gatsby might not be outright saying those things, but he might believe and subscribe to a lot of similar ideologies.
Right. Yeah.
Because ultimately they want the same thing from her.
Well, and like you said, yeah, exactly. They want her as a trophy. They're the last piece of their puzzle to make their perfect life. Just Tom has already achieved it, you know?
Exactly. So then you end up with the essentially what starts the crazy conclusion of events.
Which is so crazy that's such a small portion of the book.
Yeah.
It feels so epic.
Yeah. So it's like 30 pages, right? So you end up with them driving separately because, as we said before, Tom is so self-assured that he's like, whatever, just go. It's fine. So, you know, Daisy and Gatsby are driving back. Myrtle jumps out into the street thinking that, you know, it's Tom and he's going to save her.
Because that was the car that Tom was driving on the way there. And then they switched again.
And okay, I feel like this is important to note as well is, okay, so you have three different guys. You've got the old money, you've got the new money, and then you have a man who doesn't have any money, which is George Wilson, Myrtle's husband.
Yeah.
And yet he's still locking her in the bedroom upstairs and is still abusing her.
Yeah.
And so physically and probably emotionally and mentally too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought that
Well, he
was
basically
really...
tricked her also with money, like making her think that she was going to be set up fine. And then you hear her struggling with that lifestyle as well.
Yeah. So I think the point, and that even drove it home more for me too, is that, you know, it's kind of like it's almost like you want to feel bad for George sometimes.
Yeah.
And then I think, why? He's doing the same stuff and again probably believes in the same ideology and expects a woman to complete him in the same ways as Gatsby or Tom. It's just playing out differently depending on the amount of status and money that you possess. And so, you know, she's locked upstairs. She runs out into the street thinking Tom is going to drive by, you know, and save her. Well, it ends up being Daisy and Gatsby instead who run her over.
Yeah.
Super terrible.
Dude, and reading that scene and like actually paying attention was very graphic.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember that in high school.
Yeah.
Like, and we'll talk about banned books. This isn't one of them. And I'm like, what? The topics and themes in this book are really crazy.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
It is.
I'm
really
not saying
crazy.
I want it banned. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying books get banned for much less.
Yeah. Yeah. So that happens. We find out it was Daisy driving the car.
Yeah.
Gatsby tried to swerve him out of the way. He couldn't do it in time, but he's going to take the fall for that because, you know, he was trying to protect her. He thinks it's the right gentlemanly thing to do, whatever.
Yeah.
So then you end up with all of them getting, obviously you end up with Tom stopping a little bit later, seeing that his mistress is dead. He's visibly upset about it, but you know, whatever. They go back to Tom and Daisy's house.
Well, before that, the guy's suspecting Tom.
Oh,
because it's the yellow. Somebody's mentions
car.
The yellow car, and he remembers that he had the yellow car. But then he's like, "No, this is the car I'm driving right now. I didn't." And he takes him into the room, and he tells him something that Nick isn't privy to.
Yes, which we find out
we
later.
can assume is like he tells him exactly who did it, whose car it was.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. So now George knows who killed his wife, or he thinks he knows what's going on.
He knows,
And so they all head back to Daisy and Tom's house. They go their separate ways. And Gatsby decides to just lurk out in the bushes, essentially outside the house.
It's so creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's like, he thinks he's trying to protect her, but it's like, it's creepy.
It's also weird.
It's like now you've been a stalker. You're really a stalker.
Yeah.
No.
And Nick is like, I'm done with all of you people. this is freaking crazy.
And they thought he was so weird for wanting to leave.
Yeah.
They're like, really? And Jordan was like, not cool. And it's like,
he's like,
did we all just experience the same evening?
Someone just died because of our carelessness, and we're just gonna like go in and have dinner.
Yeah.
Basically is what's happening, you know?
Yeah.
And so that happens. Nick goes home. You know, Gatsby eventually goes home too once it's like early in the morning. After witnessing, you know, Daisy and Tom basically like kind of making up. Like they're having a discussion, they're talking about something, but they don't seem heated and angry at each other. They seem normal.
I think it's, you know, and they mention Tom's multiple affairs that people know about. She knows about them having to leave different cities because of it, because of his reputation. Yeah. And it's almost probably like, okay, well, you know, you messed up this time, so we'll call it even and move forward, you know? Yeah. Which is where I like put on Fable, you know what? They're perfect for each other. I felt bad for Daisy all this time, but at the end of the day, like, they're both terrible people.
Yeah, and so,
I do feel a little bit bad for her, like you said, because people are talking for her. She's not making any decisions for herself, but at the end of the day, she made her decision. Yeah. So I don't feel as bad for her now as I did in high school reading it.
Okay.
Because it's like, I mean, she also hit a woman and doesn't really seem to be bothered.
Well, hit and killed, and is letting someone else take the blame
for you. Like, all the reasons. So, like, yeah, all of those things stacking up, then I'm like, you know what? I don't like her. I don't think I like anybody except maybe Nick. But and I'll tell you when I decided I do kind of like him.
Well, he's complicit in it, too, though.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
So that's the
he's
other
witnessing
thing.
all this stuff going on. I mean, from the moment he saw his mistress. That's your cousin. Like, that's who you should be allying with.
Well, and he's observing that everything that they're doing is really corrupt and wrong, and yet doesn't really do anything but go along with it mostly up until the very end when he's like, I'm going home. And still, he didn't really do anything. He just exited out of that specific situation. So the comment that I had made in response to that comment that you made on Fable about how Daisy and Tom are, you know, meant for each other. So I think that, like, I agree with you. Like, obviously, those are terrible things to have done. I think that because I never liked Daisy. I never felt sorry for Daisy. I think that this reading / watching was the first time that I had any real empathy for Daisy. And I think that is because of the fact that she is so... Like you're saying, she made her decisions. Like, yes, she did, but she made her decisions within a very limited set of options that are available to her. True. So there's that, but then there's also, like, you made your choices, but when you're only given a few very crappy choices. Also, I thought that there was just this idea that if you can literally hit a person... hit and run, right? Like, you hit and run a person, and then get away with it. I think she's also realizing that, like, I could literally murder someone, and my actions as an individual are so inconsequential that I could do that, and no one even cares. Yeah. And to live in a reality where, like, that is how important the actions you take are, has got to just eat you alive inside. Yeah. When you literally know at the end of the day, I could kill a person and no one would even bat an eye at me. Yeah. I think, like, that could crush someone's entire, like, will to live, really, I think is what it could do. And so that's why I think that, do I think she's a good person? No. However, I do think that it brings up some interesting questions of, like, really, what is choice when you are given very few... crappy choices, and when all of your actions basically mean nothing to any of the people around you. Like, how do you exist? Yeah. And also looking at it as the lens of the 1920s, not the 2020s, not the even 1990s or whenever we first read this, you know. Each decade, you're going to have a kind of a different learning to do, different take on it. Yeah, a different perspective. Yeah, totally. Yeah, but you have to see it as the lens of the 1920s. Not that this stuff doesn't happen every day still, but, you know. Yeah. But I think, like, it's just, what a weird existence, though. You know what I mean? Where you're so important that these two men are willing to do anything to have you, but then at the end of the day, you're not important at all.
Yeah.
Like, what a weird, like, conundrum. Or, like, you know, what, like, cognitive dissonance would that, like, cause? You know what I mean? It would just be so weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then, obviously, we end up with everyone going their separate ways. So, you know, Gatsby spends their early morning hours basically cleaning the car, hiding it. And Nick is like, dude, you should try to get out of town. And he's like, no, like, Daisy is going to call.
You have a bright yellow car, man.
Yeah.
You gotta go.
You gotta go to Canada, go do something. And he is so set still on Daisy's gonna call and we're going to have this life together and we're not gonna hide. We're going to stay right here in this house, in this town, and
what
live
he dreamed up.
Exactly how I want, right?
Yeah.
And so, so then the next morning he takes a swim. Good old George comes around and murders
with the
him.
boom boom stick.
Yep. Murders him and then kills himself. And that's basically pretty much the end. And
then they can pin the affair on him and that he killed her for that reason and that he was the one that killed her and he's just gone and floats away into the nothing and everything he did didn't even matter.
Yep.
Horrible.
Yep. And Daisy just packs up her stuff and goes on a holiday with Tom and the kid. And I guess Nick tries to have a funeral for him. No one shows up. Yeah,
and I didn't remember any of that too. He's like calling everybody and anybody he can think of to try to get people to show up for him. And he's the only one that knows the truth about him and his character for the most part and what actually transpired, and nobody showing up for him. And that drove me crazy. For like, take all the stuff that we know about it, just the fact that all summer for like 3 to 4 months, people were going in the thousands to his place and getting catered and dancing and drinks. I mean,
entertainment.
And none of these people wanted to show up for him at his funeral.
Yeah. Well,
that's crazy.
It's because no one really knew him either.
But even if you not, I mean, none of them, like, even if you didn't know him, but like, this was at least a host, you know? Yeah. Restaurants, nameless, faceless restaurants get more, more for that, that you patronize a lot. If you go to a Italian restaurant every Friday for, a year and it burns down, you're going to go pay homage to it in some way. You're going to help the GoFundMe or something. Like, you couldn't do anything for this guy.
And then his dad does show up, which I thought was interesting because I did not remember that part. So you kind of get a little bit.
And he was proud of him. Yeah. He did say, like, he always knew his son was destined for more. So he was okay with him just flying off. And he did it. So, yeah.
So, tragic ending. Yeah.
But I did, so where I say, like, I didn't really care for Nick one way or another. He's very, like, kind of a dud that's just kind of watching things. Yeah. And I'll say, almost everybody has no personality. Like, everybody's a dull dud for the most part, at least what we see. But Nick, I did like that he confronted Tom in a very Nick way, though. He kind of backed down a little bit, but in honestly a very realistic way that I think a lot of us in life, you have nothing, hopefully this crazy, but like, things. Oh, I wish when I see this person next time, this is what I'm going to say to them, And you can tell in the writing that he's going to like be profound and stick up, but then he kind of almost backs down a little bit because Tom is a tall, Brody, hunking man, so he gets intimidated. So he kind of like backtracks a little bit.
I don't know if I remembered if I commented this in the Fable or not, but I kept thinking about, was he a sunball player?
Yeah. Yeah, because of the polo. But I like that they did that because it was like a dig at Tom.
Totally.
I don't want to be the polo player. Well, that's all you do, guy. You just live off your parents' money. How is that more distinguished than somebody who made their own money?
And you have like 2 rooms full of all your trophies and you're like washed up,
Yeah, guy.
Yeah.
That's what you are.
It totally reminded me of that, though. I was like, okay, Ethan, great.
Yeah, exactly, great. Yeah, but I did like that Nick did confront him on like, how could you do that? What did you say to George that night? Because I know you had a hand in this. And he's like, I just did what needed to be done or whatever. And then Nick kind of goes like, oh, okay. But like, it was almost
But what are you going to do? But what are you going to do?
But what are you going to do? Nobody's going to...
Well,
the police aren't going to believe him, and the guy's already dead. So what? You want your cousin to get arrested
exactly.
now?
That's all that would happen. And probably not, because back then, women would usually only go into, like, mental hospitals. They would almost never go to prison.
And he would just pay him off, and it would be done.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter. And he knows that. And Nick knows he's powerless as well.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have money, you know? Like, so that is why his character is the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah. He could only go so far.
No, what are you going to do? So I have a little bit more appreciation for him in that way, is that he's just there as a spectator and does as much as he feels like he could, and decides to write this book, even though it's all fictional, that, you know, can at least, clear his name, even if nobody ends up reading it or whatever.
Yeah.
He can have peace with it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's crazy, man. Crazy.
So I feel like... Yeah, I feel like when we read this in high school, so when I read it in college, it was like purely just for fun. Yeah. It wasn't for a class or anything. But when I read it in high school, it was like I felt like there's so many really, really important themes in this book. And that's why I made a list of like all the themes that I could just think of off the top of my head. But we didn't talk about anything. I'm like, I feel like all we talked about was, so I put here the unattainable nature of the American dream and wealth and class. I feel like that's all we talked about in high school. About this book. And then also like the imagery, it was like everything was about the imagery, everything was about the symbolism, and it's like, okay, I get it, those are really important things, but there's so much more in here that I was just, I mean, it's like you were saying, I mean, obviously, the unattainable nature of the American dream. Okay, great. Well, what does that mean? It means that there has to be a whole bunch of people that are working really hard in whatever that place is, the Valley of Ashes, so that capitalism can move forward and allow these people to live this way. So it's almost like we were very close to having that, like, analyzation or whatever happening, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then we didn't talk about any of the, like, sexism, racism.
Yeah, could be in women's studies, easily.
Yeah. None of that. So we didn't talk about any of that. And I get that those are, like, heavier topics, but then at the same time, it's like, if you're having us read this book, we should at least mention that stuff. Hello.
Yeah, no. In the defense of our crazy English AP teacher, he was obsessed with Frankenstein. Okay, that was the book he went in depth on all the things,
which is also a good book. I will say
it's a good book, but like, golly,
yeah. I mean, I just feel like we missed a lot of things here, and so I was surprised by that.
And I just missed a lot just reading it. Yeah, it's very interesting. I definitely recommend you guys, if you joined us today, reread it if you haven't yet. If you did join us on Fable, thank you so much. But reread some of your old, maybe favorites, maybe ones you didn't love, because you might learn something new.
Yeah, or like them a lot this time around, because let's face it, how much were our, 15-year-old brains able to really digest? Not a lot, you know? And
like I said, like, dude, it's crazy to read these things as an adult who's paying attention a little bit more. That's like, her getting run over was very graphic about how she was killed and their adultery, and all these things that people want to get banned. That are, like I said, this book isn't. I don't want it to be. I think it is important. But, like, books have done way less that have gotten banned over one little scene, a kissing scene or something stupid, or
magic.
Or magic. Golly.
Witchcraft.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we share just like a couple quotes that stood out to us? You want to just do that? So one that I really, really liked here. If that was true, he must have felt that he had lost the old warm world, paid a high price for living too long with a simple dream. Single dream, sorry. Simple also, but single dream. He must have looked up at an unfamiliar sky through frightening leaves and shivered as he found what a grotesque thing a rose is and how raw the sunlight was upon the scarcely created grass. A new world, material without being real, where poor ghosts breathing dreams like air drifted fortuitously about like that ashen, fantastic figure gliding toward him through the amorphous trees. Like,
whoa.
Like,
see?
That... Yeah, and it's like that
Poetic.
moment when he realizes, and this is one of those things that I was like, I feel like I've missed in the past. Like, the whole point of that, right, is realizing that a rose isn't beautiful unless you imbue that, unless you make it beautiful, it's normalized that it's beautiful, like you give it meaning, like we give it meaning.
Yeah.
And without that, it could be just as easily a grotesque thing. And I think it's like what he's saying is that he's realizing in that moment that like Daisy could be like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So
yeah.
I feel so like reading a quote like that, like, wow, I totally like messed it up and that feels silly, but I did my best.
Yeah.
Did my
Oh,
best.
it's good. Yeah.
So what do you got?
I just loved this very simple little quote. There is no confusion like the confusion of a simple mind.
Yeah.
In chapter 7.
I think that I highlighted that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. It's right here. Yep. I feel like there was so many that I almost like got a little bit like overwhelmed by it. Oh, I thought this was really good. I wouldn't ask too much of her, I ventured. You can't repeat the past. Can't you repeat the past? You cried incredulously. Why, of course you can.
It's like one of my favorite Leonardo DiCaprio lines when he gives it.
Yep.
So good. Why, of course you can.
Yeah. And then he says right here, he talked a lot about the past, and I gathered that he wanted to recover something, some idea of himself, perhaps, that had gone into loving Daisy. Yeah, it's just so perfect.
Chapter 9, they were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness or whatever it was that kept them together and let other people clean up the mess that they made.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they did.
That's exactly what they did.
Yeah, that's who they were. And that's where I'm like, see, they're made for each other. 'Cause they do. They both have a hand in that. It's crazy.
It sums it up so well. So, do you want to share some more? Do you feel? I feel like that's a good.
We could go
summation.
on
forever.
forever. We did the green light in the last one. We're not going to do it again. You all know the green light quote, and if you don't,
look
you
it
should.
up.
So let's just really briefly, because this is a long episode, we had a lot to discuss. Let's talk about the movies for a couple minutes here. So the old movie, based in the 1970s, starring Robert Redford, and the newer movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio, and I think you said in 2013. I almost said the 2013. So I just want to know really quickly, between the two movies, what was your favorite one? I know, as you said, it's been a while since you watched the old one.
It has been I'd say probably a year or two since I've watched the old one. So not too long. Okay. That's really hard for me to answer because I really, really like the new one. That's Baz Luhrmann. So it's the soundtrack's excellent. The style is really unique. Obviously, Leonardo DiCaprio is great. And what's the main girl's name? I always forget her name.
I don't know.
She's really great too. But I feel like the old one, to me, not just because Robert Redford and Mia Farrow were in it, but because of the clothes and the scenes and do you know what I mean? It's old timey in a way that I really enjoyed also. So I don't know, honestly, that I could pick a favorite. I feel like I like them both for different reasons. And so they'd be kind of tied in my mind.
Okay. Which one do you think of the two movies was most accurate to the book?
I think that probably the new one was most accurate to the book. Because, and I didn't realize this from the first time that I watched it, but it's almost written in such a way like Romeo and Juliet is, where, in Romeo and Juliet, all they're doing is speaking in the original, you know, dialogue, of Romeo and Juliet, the original Shakespeare. This was the same way. I didn't realize that. And it was coming right off of reading the book. So it was fresh in my mind. It was basically all of the lines in the movie were pulled directly out of the book. And I was like, wow, that's really cool.
They're refreshing.
Yeah, totally.
From so many books to movies, you know?
So I would say I really appreciated that a lot.
So between the two movies, I just finished before recording this, the old one. And I watched a couple scenes, and obviously we watched it in high school on the wheelie cart with the TV. Yeah. And the versus the new one. The new one, my favorite by far. And I also think that the new one was so accurate to the book. I'd say except towards the end where they just kind of wrap it up really quickly. You only have so much time in a movie. But yeah, I love because the entire thing is still mostly being narrated by Nick, which is how the book is. So I thought that was so well done. Obviously, it is more grand because of budget and capabilities of the studios these days versus the 70s. So more grand than as far as dress, dance, the mansion, everything is more aesthetically accurate in the 70s movies, but the characters for me were just the vibe of the book and the darkness and the artistic style and the pausing, everything about the new one, I think captured that from the book so well. That when I was watching the new movie yesterday, it felt like I was still reading the book. Where when I was watching the old movie today, I was like, this is like pulling teeth out because it's the same amount of time. Like Liz talked about at the beginning. It's 2.5 hours for both movies. It's crazy how little they put into the old movie because it's no narration except maybe at the end. And the characters, I was texting Liz, I was like, Daisy's driving me nuts. It's, it's that classic like 1920s style overacting. And I'm like, Daisy's just the word. Robert Redford was the only redeeming quality in that movie. Even Tom was like a doofus. Like, I don't know.
He was kind of a doofus, yeah.
I hated the acting. I just hated the acting, so it really pulled me out. And then Myrtle, this is something that I really had a problem with both Myrtles, because in the book, she is described as being very different and polar opposite of Daisy and being very curvy as opposed to the flapper wafer style that was the 1920s. And they did a little bit of a better job in the new movie. I mean,
but not
what's her
really.
name?
It's
not like they tried. It looks like they tried. They understood to make it, but it was still 2013, so they weren't actually putting somebody with a full figure in.
Yeah.
They just try to like lift up the brassiere, But then the first one, that Myrtle is as skinny as a toothpick.
Yeah.
So that was like, I'm like, that's why it was probably so jarring for me to see the first time, other than just being what she is. But it's like, that's not how Myrtle was described.
Not at all. So, I noticed that
weird choice artistically, but Baz Luhrmann is a genius. I'll stand by that. I love every one of his takes. I loved Elvis. It was amazing. The soundtrack I still own to this day, and I love it. And just rewatching it for the first time in years yesterday, chills all around. It's just so beautifully done. So if we don't inspire you to read the book, watch the movie. Golly, it's so good. It's one of those movies that I think are so as close as they can get well done to the book.
Yeah,
that it's not better. It's not better. It's just different because you're experiencing it differently. But it's just freaking neck and neck as far as the themings and everything that you can see.
Well, and I feel like, just like with like Romeo and Juliet, it would be a great way, like if you were in high school now reading it and one of your teachers showed you, the new Leonardo DiCaprio version, it'd be a great way to interpret the prose in a way that you could understand easily. I think that that's kind of the key. Because like sometimes, even I would have to sit there and read a page 3 times to figure out exactly what they're trying to say. And I feel like that's what I like about watching a movie like that, or like Romeo and Juliet, where it's like, what are they saying? And then you can see it visually and you're like, oh, that's what's happening. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I think that would be useful in that way tue. But really enjoyed it.
Cool.
Okay, so should we wrap it up with a smash or pass?
Let's do it.
Okay, so mine's a little messy and sticks to the adulterer theme. Because I have to know. And I was like, I think, like I said before on a previous episode, now that we're doing the polls and so many of you guys are participating, I just love to see like what your guys' like, I love Ashley's answers, but I also love your guys' answers.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. So
we love to see the popular vote.
Yeah. I mean, right now, I just have to say okay, so we did one with Hans from Frozen and then Frankenstein, just the monster Frankenstein, whichever version you prefer. And currently, I think they're like neck and neck with how many people would smash them. So I think Frankenstein actually, last time I checked, might have actually been beating Hans by a little bit, which I thought was kind of hilarious. So anyways, I'll see who amongst us are messy B words. So, with that being said, and I say that in just a funny way in jest, obviously, but smash or pass, Reese, so Rhysand. So I'm rereading ACOTAR right now, so it's very heavy in the brain, okay?
Yeah.
But you're his side chick.
Pass. All day.
All day. Pass for me, too.
Pass all day. Sorry. Pass all day. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah. That's kind of what I figured, but again. And no judgment, but I
because this is all made up.
Because this is all made up. Rhysand is literally a fake person.
Yeah,
but I am curious to see what you guys have to say about it. So we'll see.
Yeah. Keep in mind, Feyre's abilities.
That's a big part of it too. Be careful.
Yeah, careful now. Watch yourself.
Okay, so what do you got?
Okay. You can pick one. You have to pick one.
Okay. Oh, I have to pick one. Okay.
So you have to,
Great.
you have to pick one.
Okay, here we go.
You know Wayne's World?
Yes.
Wayne or Garth?
Oh.
So bad.
Okay, so I haven't seen that in a really long time.
You don't need to.
Which is the brown-haired one?
Wayne.
That's the one.
Yeah. Agreed. Only because Garth looks like me when I have blonde hair and wear glasses. If I were to pick a costume of Wayne and Garth, I would be Garth for sure. So can't
Costume
do that.
idea unlocked. Costume idea.
Yeah, always.
Unlocked.
It's been on my list for like years.
I mean, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So same for you. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, and then we'll find out, I don't know, we'll find out something interesting about you guys.
Yeah.
Like who is the most popular out of those two.
Yeah,
That was a good one.
I
appreciate it.
Because Garth, like, he's great, but he's too much like, he reminds me too much of myself. So, you know. And I don't really love Wayne, but, you know, Garth is my favorite, but still.
Yeah.
It's a best friend thing.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, on that note, if honestly, if you guys have stuck around for this whole episode and you're not like obsessed with Great Gatsby, you just like listening to us talk, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, you guys. I think this is probably our longest episode yet. And I feel good. I feel like we did our AP English class good.
Yeah. While keeping it fun,
While keeping it fun, guys, and digesting all that. So thank you guys so much. You stuck around this long. If you aren't subscribed or following yet, what you doing? Just push that little button. Push that little button so you can get more content from us, and also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Besties in the Books Podcast.
Yes. All right.
And we will
see you next
Tuesday. Bye.